For the end of 2021, we've actually kind of already hit our goal. We just really wanted to mostly break even just for our first kind of year, and we've already hit that. So we got to kind of reevaluate and maybe shoot a little higher. I would love to, like I said, get somebody on full time as opposed to just a part-time. We have a couple people kind of in the waiting that if I was able to give them the go ahead, hey, you could hop on full time, they would be right on board with that.
Right.
So that would be probably one of the next main goals would be to get a true full timer in there. Start with one and grow from there.
So I actually want to go back and we're going to do a little real-time coaching here, everybody. So when you hit your goal, which is like, hey, let's get back what we lost, not what you lost, but what was lost. So let's get back to kind of we'll call it the low water mark of like that 75 number. Yeah. We don't talk revenue, but if you're going to have these conversations, I always recommend that revenue be had in conjunction with, because it's not just about the members. Revenue is a real thing that we can't ignore. So let's just call it 75, and you say a little higher. And it's worth noting, if you guys hit it already, that's actually perfect. I would like to hit my 1 year goal at 6 months, and then I'm going to reevaluate and I'm going to establish another goal. So when you say a little higher, let's put it out there for the world, speak it into existence, like Jay and I like to say. Specifically, what would you like a little higher to look like?
I'd like to get the membership closer to 100, to be honest. I don't know if over the next 6 months, if that's possible or not, but that's where I'd like to be.
Well, you did 40.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
And that's literally almost double what your number here is now. But the important part about this is, okay, so let's just call it 25. So you come up a little short here, 97. Okay, let's call it 25. Well, if I reverse engineer that, what do I need to do over the course of the next 6 months to get to 25? The easy math on there is 4.
Net 3. Or 4. Yeah.
Yeah, net 4. Right. So which is okay. So if you come up net 3, again, who cares? It's still I'm going to be coming up 18. Let's call it 20 by the end of the year, and you're at 92.
Yeah.
So then in this scenario, I'm like, okay, let's be very specific about this. And this goes back into the SMART goals, like make it specific. But now what you can start doing is crafting that strategic plan. Yeah. And in my opinion, everything should be viewed through that lens, which is like, hey, how can I make sure everybody stays and that we get more people? Right. It's not either or, right? I don't have to sacrifice one at the expense of the other. So then when you're looking at these community events, yes, I want to do things like get everybody together. But I think one of the key principles that everybody misses that is like, what's the, I don't like to use this term, but everybody will get like, what's the hook on this kind of retention tool, right? Because I can use a retention tool as a sales tool, right? And it actually feels way better that way, to be honest with you. It feels not sleazy that way for a lot of people who are kind of like new to the idea of sales. What would we pair with those things that would bring in other people during some of these community events or community day or the local competition? That I think is is like one of the missing aspects of this idea of growth is like, yes, retention is a massive part of that because it's really hard to have growth without appropriate retention. Yeah. But then while focusing on retention, what can I sprinkle on top of that would lend itself to growth? That's where I would have you focus. If we were looking at this, like we would put some very specific things on the calendar, be like, listen, we're going to get 4. We're going to get 4 here. We're going to get 4 here. And we're going to get 4 here. The other 4, I'm just hoping those people are going to walk in, but those are going to be kind of the organic, like Google search. I like fitness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they'll just walk in because very few gyms don't have 3 to 4 people pinging their website every month. We just fail to call them back. We're just like, every time I look at somebody's leads, I'm like, what do you mean you don't have leads? I'm looking at 9 right here that you have not run down. So have you guys thought about that at all?
Yes, we do track our leads. We do have we have a dedicated, one of the owners is dedicated to member communication specifically because we view it as such an important thing. Like that's like the only thing. She's a coach as well, but we put that on her plate as it's very important. We want somebody to actually take the time to do that and make sure that that is being handled properly and promptly. If somebody reaches out, we want to get to them within an hour or 2 if we can. Even if it's one of our own members, we don't want to leave people feeling stranded. We take a lot of pride in our member communications.
So, what's your onboarding look like?
Our onboarding right now is we're doing two classes where we're teaching kind of the 9 foundational movements, and it's,
you know how I feel about that.
I know. That's one thing we haven't had a chance to kind of go back and reevaluate.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
But yeah, and if I notice that they're really poor in one area, we'll kind of focus more on one than the other and touch on some of the other stuff just so they see it and just start to kind of get an idea.
Are you doing all of these one-on-one?
Yes, they are one-on-one. Unless multiple people join at the same time, then we'll try to lump them in.
This is an interesting one, and I think there's optimal, and I think that there's a bunch of stuff in the middle that falls in the practical bucket. And so we don't actually teach one method. What we do is we lay out a bunch of different scenarios, and the primary thing that we take into account is what is feasible based on manpower, going back to what we were referring to earlier, which is like, hey, listen, if you're coaching 25 classes a week, you're doing a couple PTs here and there, and you're going to do all the consults and the onboardings, right? Like even it was 2, let's just say you brought on, so you're going to do 25 classes a week, and you're going to throw in 2 consults and then another 4 trainings. So that's 30 hours a week. Anybody who's never coached 30 hours a week, it's not fun. I don't give a shit how much you like coaching. That is not fun. Like that is exhausting. And you're good for like, I don't know, a week and a half before your coaching becomes subpar. So what we'll look at is like what is feasible, and then we'll design the best variation based on what they have available, with a plan to evolve it over time. Like as the team grows, then we will morph it, right? But the point is, we'll just apply the same principles to every single different variation of that. It's just like the time allocated, so like one of my mentors in CrossFit, Joe Alexander, he's just like, listen, your ability to compress or expand information is really kind of what makes you a ninja in your craft. And if you need to compress it because you don't have a ton of team, well, then you're going to compress that onboarding, and because it's necessary. As I get freed up, now I'm going to open it back up because it does provide a better experience, but just not to say that you couldn't do a good experience with one. We just don't believe it to be optimal is where we go with that. So that would be my next thing, is like, I would, obviously, if you need to do a price scrub on anything, like I would take a hard look at that, because that's an easy way to kind of get back to maybe lost revenue. But the second thing I would look at is like, what is the onboarding process? Because that's like the first hill that we cross over with regard to retention, is like, what does that experience look like for people that come through?